Hello, everyone. Episode 34.
Wow. My age.
Emily Dolan Davies. How are you?
I'm good. Hello. Thank you so much for having me here. It's been a while setting this up, so I'm so glad that we get to do this. This is so fun. This is so fun because Kira, me and you have known each other for a long while now. And Felipe, it turns out we've got things in common already, aside from obviously being drummers.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Let's not bring the drumming into the subject.
Nah. That'd be too easy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Let's get all the most obscure connections ever, but never quite talk about drums.
Yeah, like the chicken around the corner from Z1.
Exactly. It's one of the best chicken, lots of chicken that you can get in Camden.
If anyone's got recommendations, they can go to you guys. I already know a lot about you. So for those who don't, I guess, you started drumming when you were like, what, 11 or 12? Is that
11,
right?
yeah, that's right, yeah.
With Charisse, your buddy, you both started at the same time, and you just fell in love with drumming, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. So I was 11, like you say. I was just in school, went to a regular state school or whatever you would call it. I'd never know, but they confused me, all those school things. Normal school that you didn't pay for, nothing. And in the register they just said, oh, there's this drum club starting. And I always had music around the household, was a lover of music already. My dad played a little bit of guitar, and I when I tell you I was the shyest kid ever, I was the shyest. I wouldn't talk to anyone. I was like super quiet, but for some reason in my head I went, that's a good idea, I'll try that. So let's go for the loudest instrument on this planet. So anyway, toddled off to this drum club that lunchtime and just sat down behind the kit and started trying to play what the teacher was telling me to play. And it's just everything just kind of like snapped into place. And it was like, I understand this. I'm not saying I could play, but I understood the concept, and it just felt right and it felt good. And I was just like, wow. And for the first time ever in my life, and probably since, actually, I felt like I could actually be good at something. And I've never felt like that before. I always wanted to be good at something. And I thought, yeah, I could do this. And anyway, as this kind of like this first lunchtime session ended, all the kids kind of left, and apart from me and this one other girl, and I was like, oh, okay. And I got chatting to her. It turned out we were in the same form class, and that was Charisse, I say. And from that day, every day we were going to school for like an hour before school, an hour at lunch, an hour after school, and we would just play. And one of us would have learnt something the day before or the evening before, seen something on TV or listened to something on an album and gone, oh, look what I learned. And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. Why don't we try this? And it was like this back and forth for essentially 7 years, 3 hours a day for 7 years. And that was it. I mean, the bug was there. And yeah, I've never forgotten it since. I still love the drums as much to this day, which is bonkers.
Love it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm
very lucky.
That is amazing. And how this love of drumming translated into start, because you said you were a shy kid, and you and your best friend exchanging information, but how that evolved into playing in the first band, for example.
Yeah, so straight away it was kind of like this, oh, I want to be good at this, and okay, how am I going to do that? And it was like, well, we happen to have a lot of like music was quite encouraged in our school because not all the kids were very academic. So the head teacher was very, very encouraging in terms of, right, that's fine if you're not academic, but whatever you put yourself into, like, just do it. And that was in music, and that was in the arts, and that was in sport. So consequently, there were a lot of people kind of picking up instruments, taking GCSE music and A-level music. So me and Charisse decided we were going to be playing with every single musician in the school just so we could get better. So we did that up until about, I suppose, 13, 14. And then it was like, right, okay, we've played with everyone in the school, but we pretty much had. So well, we probably better get outside of school. So we started looking for separate bands outside of school, started playing gigs around London, rehearsing a lot in Camden and places like that. And yeah, I guess I built my confidence up as I went, because the drums became this thing that no matter what was going on, because I wasn't particularly great at school, and I didn't enjoy it. I got bullied, all the usual boring stuff. But I knew that no matter what was happening in everywhere else in the world, in my world, you know what it's like when you're a teenager, you think that your world is the world. No matter what was going on, the madness, I knew that I could always bring my concentration back to the drums, and they would never let me down. I knew that if I put in the work and the energy, I would see results. And I was becoming accepting of myself. And I think that was such an important thing. I think it's an important thing for anyone, really, to really accept who you are. And the drums opened that door for me. And I guess I'm still walking through that door to this day, actually thinking about it. But yeah, I am so lucky. That's all I can say. I'm so lucky to have found it.
Cool.
I think that's lovely. And I think the fact that, you had a friend, you and Sharice together, I imagine it must have been like incredibly like supportive, and like you're going to get better because you're constantly sharing. Did you ever have a moment where it maybe blurred into rivalry, or was it always just like, no, we're different?
I mean, it was always like, I tell you what it was like. We are to this day like sisters. So we love each other to the depths of our souls. But with sisters, yeah, there sometimes is, a bit of friction or whatever, and that's normal. But the fact is that no matter what, at the core of our relationship is that sisterhood, I suppose. So it means that you can address that, and you can kind of go, well, no, actually, I wasn't happy about that, and what happened there. But like you say, that kind of being able to bounce ideas off of each other is just absolutely invaluable. And more than that, I mean, we all know how it is, especially in this industry. It's so difficult. You get a lot of knockbacks. Sometimes you just don't know where you stand with something, or you're feeling really insecure. And luckily, we'd be on different ebbs and flows. So if one of us was feeling a little bit down, the other one would be like, no, come on, we can do this. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be okay. Let's just keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. And vice versa. So it ended up being a really amazing support network. And I often say this, and it's true. I don't know if I would have been able to persevere to the degree that I have without that support network of me and Sharice as like this little unit of, I mean, people used to call us the girls, and bless you, if you ever got cornered by us, like any drummer at a drum show would often get cornered by me and Sharice, sort of in a corner, one each side. Right, tell us how we can be a professional drummer. We really want to be a professional drummer. Can you tell us everything? And just, I look back and I think, God, people were so patient with us. They were so kind.
Yeah, I would be in trouble if they cornered me, because if there was, we want to be professional drummers, I would say, I'm still trying to figure that out.
Honestly, a lot of the time that was kind of the answer. It was like, I mean, there's this way thing you can do, there's that, but nothing's guaranteed. So this is what we quickly found out. And yeah.
And how that profession came, okay, you were determined to be a professional, but did you actively took steps to become a professional, or was kind of an accident?
Oh no, definitely not an accident. So it was at 14. So 11, I completely fell in love, but it was at 14 that I went, right, I'm going to do this. This is not an option. Not doing it is not an option. And I remember the distinct moment. I was just walking home from school. I was walking through a park, and I was just like, yep, okay, I'm doing this. And from that moment, I just sought out every piece of information that I could in interviews, in autobiographies, by, emailing people or going to gigs and meeting people, going to drum shows. And like I say, cornering people and just going, I want to do this too. What is the best way that I can do this? And they would tell me about, playing to music. They would tell me about playing to the click, and then playing with lots of different people and getting out there and networking and all this amalgamation of information. And I would absolutely obsess over each sort of point of that. And then I got to about 16, and I sort of, in fact, it wasn't 16, it was 16, then it was 18 as well. And I sat down with my parents and I said, look, I want to do this thing. And they were well aware, and they could see that I had the commitment. But between me and my parents, we were going, well, we're not sure what the best step is. Maybe to go to music college or music university, like study music at university, or do you just get out there and do it? Or what is the right way? Turns out there isn't one. Spoiler alert. But what we decided was, okay, how about, and this was my parents' idea, bless them, they're so supportive. They said, how about you get out there and just, I was already playing out in London and stuff like that. How about you get out there and you play more, like as many gigs as you can, do as many rehearsals as you can, do stuff for free, just get your name out there to as many people as you can for the next 3 years. So from 18 to 21, and we'll treat it like your education, your university. So we'll give you a very small allowance to cover petrol and to cover, if you need to get into gigs or whatever it is, and just go do it. And just commit to it, and don't worry about, it's not about earning money. You don't need to pay rent. Just go do it and make sure that you put everything into it. And I did, and it worked. And at 20, I got a phone call from a band called The Hours, and it was from that moment that I started touring. I was doing recordings and all that sort of stuff, so it paid off. But it was definitely a lot of feeling around in the dark and just having this sort of trust that somehow this was the right thing to do, and just following through with it. But it worked, and that was 13 years ago. Yes. Someone said to me once, that's why they call it playing music, and that's why all musicians stay looking young, is because we play.
Yes.
Yeah, nobody says I'm going to work the drum kit now.
No, exactly. If they did, it'd be a little bit weird. I'm gonna work the drum kit. Ooh, no, thank you.
But let's go back to our chat about
Yes.
drumming.
Why not?
No, you said you had no idea if it was going to work or not. Well, it did, and as you said, there's no one right way of doing it. If you chose the university path, would have worked.
Just
Same, just different. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the perfect example of that is mine and Sharice's relationship. We started on the same day for the first 7 years. We had pretty much not the same experience, but we had a lot of similar experiences. But our paths completely diverted, and we have two very different careers, both very successful. But it's just, you just find your way, you find the path that you want to be on. As you say, for years I thought that there was only one path and you were either on it or not, and it's just not like that. And as it turns out, more recently, it's like I didn't actually realize I could carve a path as well. Who knew that was a thing? And that's been one of the most mind-blowing, kind of freeing things that I've worked out. So yeah, I think it's in a way, I suppose, a career as a creative is creative in itself. There is no path. You just got to go create it and have fun and explore, and just try stuff.
Yeah, of course, and also have some sort of positive attitude that it's going to work out at the end.
Yeah, blind faith and just
basically
ignorance.
Yeah.
Just like, it will work. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of times that I was like, I don't think this is actually working. Like, did I make a mistake? And I don't know.
I was having a chat with a student of mine the other day who's 18 and thinking that he wants to be a professional, but he was with all these doubts. Is it going to work? This and that and the other. Said, when I was your age, I was sure that I would be in the biggest rock band that ever existed. 30 years later, rock doesn't even exist anymore. So how are you going to know?
Exactly. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Like, we do not look at this year. This year is such a metaphor for life.
Exactly.
We don't know what's going to happen, but the way you react to things happening out of your control will actually be the determining factor. I think if you're able to adapt to the situation, then you're in with a good chance of at least being at the table, maybe. And yeah. It's a tough one. It's such a tough one.
Yeah, well, Drum Education Live in this format exists because of the pandemic.
There you go. See, a beautiful thing to come. I'm all about concentrating on the beautiful things that have come out from this inherently awful situation. And well done, you guys, for like just going, right, okay, let's do something positive because this sucks. So well done, you guys. Like, kudos to you. And I know that a lot of people are getting a lot from what you're doing. So thank you from the drum community. I'm going to represent them right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that.
Well, it's a pleasure. Yeah. We haven't asked our question, Felipe.
Yeah, I know. I was like, why hasn't she asked that yet?
Sozzles. But there is.
I'm on tenterhooks.
Okay, so no, the question that we usually ask is, what
No. Wait. Now comes the question.
Is there a sound effect? Ah!
Oh,
Kira,
yeah.
the question, please.
What do you think is missing from drum education?
Oh goodness. Oh wow, that's not a massive question, is it? What is missing from drum education?
It's Kira's fault. She came up with this question.
Oh, I love it. I'm all about asking huge. Can I tell you a quick story, and then I will answer your question if I can think of a half decent answer. So when I judged the Young Drummer of the Year, I think it was 2 years ago, and this poor kid, he was so brilliant and he was an amazing drummer, as all those kids are. And every time I'm like, oh my goodness, I should give up. But this kid, he came in and I had a bit of a soft spot for him. So I was like, I'm going to ask him a really great question. And he came in, he's like teeny. And I said to him, so what would be your ultimate goal in drumming? And he just looked at me like, you've just asked me the meaning of life. And all the other judges around me kind of looked at me like, what are you doing? And I was like, too much? Was that, sorry, I'll just sit here and be quiet. So anyway, you just reminded me like that. I feel like the little boy right now. So what is
no pressure.
No pressure.
Yeah.
There's no right answer.
That's true.
Like,
there's so many. I mean, honestly, I'd say the biggest thing probably missing from drum education, I mean, it's such a wide thing, drum education, but I'd say maybe the mental health side of stuff, to be honest, because it's all good and well being able to do paradiddles and triplets and all these wonderful things and learning your language and playing to music and all the stuff that we know all that because many people have done YouTube videos about it, you know, they've written books on it, you know, whatever you want to do, whatever avenue of playing that you want to do, unless you're doing like the progressive stuff like the Mark Juliana sort of stuff, you know, someone's written about it or someone's done a video on it. But what people don't talk about are the mental health side of stuff if you want to get into this as a profession, but even down to things like practice routines and how to do that well, because learning how to learn is a skill in itself. And if you can do that, then that's going to set you up for so many other things. You know, one of the greatest skills I ever learned was how to learn songs. And that has just served me throughout every gig I've ever played in my life. It has, you know, talking about adapting to a situation, things go wrong a lot. You know, you end up in situations where you're just like, I have to learn 20 songs in the next 2 hours. How am I going to do this? And, you know, but I've learned how to learn songs. So I know I've got that skill. So I don't need to worry about that. I've just got to do the thing. And it's like, cool, done, nice. And I think it's the same with mental health. And it's sort of having things, you know, we all suffer with things like imposter syndrome, for instance. Oh, it's the worst, but it's rife. I suffer with it. And just having like sort of this growth mindset. There's so many things that I think it's not that people aren't talking about it. I just think that they don't think that it's possible to sort of excel in a way that is not to do with how quickly you can play something or the consistency or whatever it is about your playing that you're concentrating on. So I think if there could be some element of that brought into drum education, I think that would be really, really beneficial. But it again, that in itself also a massive thing. So I've answered your massive question with a massive answer, so I'm sorry.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the personal side of drumming is left out a lot. When you know, it's all about, as you said, the paradiddle and how fast you can play it, but there's the whole thing of how to be in the band, how to behave with other people, how to relate to other people.
Yeah,
And this
because
is
at the end of the day, a gig is 90% your relationships with other people. The playing, you know, being generous is probably 10%. That's being generous. But as we know, you know, if you're on the road, if you're on tour, if you're on a tour bus with people, the playing is for 2 hours of that day. The other 22 hours, potentially, you're in the company of 5, 6, 7, 20 other people. And you've got to be able to communicate and be mindful of other people and you know, just survive that very strange situation. So yeah, like you say, I think you're right. The kind of
yeah.
personal side of it is a whole thing.
I had a teacher that he said that, well, the band that he played for the longest, which was a big prog rock act, he said the real audition was when the band took him for dinner.
That was my experience in the darkness.
Because
Absolutely
he
correct.
said, you know, after he played with the band in the studio twice, they knew he could play.
Yeah, and the
So
thing is, so many people can play, so
yeah,
many people can, it's not about that. And you're right, the audition is not the playing. Loads of people can play, it's the personality. And it's not about a good versus bad personality either. It's not that. It's just synergy. That's all it is. So I often say this to people: if they don't like, if they go for an audition and they don't get a gig, but they can play the material but they don't get it, they think that they've done something wrong. And it's like, it probably wasn't. It was probably just that they think in a certain way and you don't. And that's okay. Like, you need to be okay with that, because, you know, people obviously often ask me about the being a female drummer thing. And I, as I'm sure, Kira, you've had the same experience. You know, you don't get called for gigs sometimes purely on the back of just being a woman, which in itself is insane. But what I often also say is, well, to be honest, I probably wouldn't want to hang out with people that have that attitude, because it's not logical. It's not logical. And I probably wouldn't enjoy spending 22 hours a day on a bus with someone who thinks that I'm inferior because of my anatomy. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's such an insane concept. So these things actually, I think, will help you find where you need to be, and you'll be in a happier spot, probably mentally, you know, with good people that think are like-minded. So yeah, I think, yeah, the personal side of things is often overlooked and not given enough credit in terms of getting gigs, in terms of not getting gigs. And just leaning into who you are, I think, is such an invaluable thing to learn, really.
true.
I like to pick up on that point, the leaning in thing, because I saw one of your posts. I'm enjoying your Instagram very much.
Thank you.
And
All my jumping around, I'm doing a lot of dancing and silliness at the moment because I've become obsessed with TikTok, which is entertaining me to the nth degree. So I thought, I want to get on that. I'm just going to dance
I
around.
love it. But what this post in particular, you're talking about leaning in, and you said in 2011 you had a bit of a turning point where things just started to turn around. And can you share a little bit more about that time, like beforehand and like the process?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so what
interesting.
happened was, so 2011, it was just quite there was a lot of emotion that came with 2011 for me. And that was, I started playing with Tricky, who is this amazing trip hop artist from the 90s. He's from the Bristol crew. He's an amazing, incredible artist. But his shows took every bit of emotion out of me because he's such an emotional performer as well. And like, just the whole, everything surrounding it, it was just, everything seemed like it was to the extreme, which was amazing to be in. But when I sort of got off the back of that tour, I was like, I'm exhausted. Like, I just feel spent. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, okay, well, there's that. And it was my, well, how long had I guess I'd been pro for like 3 years at that point. And it was really fun, but it didn't feel right. It wasn't quite the right fit, if you know what I mean. And I couldn't quite work out why. Then when would it have been? Later that year. I don't remember what month, and I probably should. My mum got diagnosed with breast cancer. She's fine, so please don't panic or anything. She's fine now, but it just really snapped everything into position for me. And I was like, hold on a second. Do you know what? No, because my mum is one of the most beautiful human beings on this planet. And I just went, well, in that case, that means that She didn't deserve that. She absolutely did not. So therefore, this world is crazy. So knowing that, why would I not just be exactly who I am? And before this, I'd been going to auditions trying to be whatever the person auditioning wanted me to be. You know, if it was a rock audition, I would dress up rocky. If it was a pop audition, then I'd try and, I don't know, I had long hair, Kiri, you know that, but I used to scrape back my hair, you know, in a ponytail or something fun like that. And I was just trying to fit into these molds that were not me at all. And I hit 2011, I went to my hairdressers, and I'd always wanted short hair. So I was like, right, chop it all off, do whatever you want. I literally don't care. They chopped it all off, ended up pretty much like this. And then I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to go into every audition and be what I am, which is essentially a pop kind of rock drummer with a bit of a blues edge. And I love songs. Songs is my thing. That is it. Lyrics, that is me. Like that, and everything I've ever played is based around what the lyrics are doing. And I thought, right, well, that's who I am. And I'm just going to go in and unashamedly be that. And from the moment I started doing that, I suddenly found myself surrounded by, like, gradually, it didn't happen overnight, but gradually, bit by bit, people that would gravitate towards me were really lovely and really kind, and the music was really good, and I was having fun, and I was able to be in the moment, whereas before it was like, and what's the next thing, and what's the next thing, and what's the next thing. It was like, no, actually, I'm just going to enjoy this moment. And I really felt a lot of growth in my playing as a person, you know, in other skill sets sort of parallel to being a drummer, and things just started happening with not a huge amount of kind of resistance, if that makes sense. Don't get me wrong, there were still moments, and there were moments mainly where my sister would kick me up the butt and go do this thing now, and I'm like, oh, okay, but I don't want to, I'm scared. She's like, I don't care. And then things would start happening, and the more I sort of like learned about taking action, terrifying, but if you're taking action as yourself, you're like, well, at least if I do it and something good happens, I know it's because I've just done it as me, rather than trying to be something else, what someone else wants me to be, which that's no way to live your life, turns out. So yeah, I'd advocate the leaning into who you are thing. It's everything.
I love that. I just think, yes, 100%, because I don't know, I don't know why it's common, but I've had a similar experience and heard of other people with a similar thing, where you're trying to chase something, and you're trying to go, oh, well, maybe I should do this, or maybe I should do that. I don't know. What do you want me to be? You know, and then when you actually go, no, do what you love, do the thing, because you're probably best at it.
That's it, exactly. Yeah. Oh, it's so true. And then furthering on from that was so me and a friend of mine had this conversation about, you know, your self-worth as a session drummer, as a session musician, basically being pinned on whether someone is calling you for a gig. So therefore, if the phone isn't ringing, you feel awful about yourself. And we sat down over a coffee, and we both sort of realized this at the same moment. We're like, that can't be good. That cannot be a good thing. And as someone who has always tried to fit in, and, you know, I never fitted in. I was always a bit of an outcast for whatever reason. I think, when would it have been, 3 years ago? Or no, I suppose it was 5 years ago. I started making moves to go, do you know what? I'm not going to try and fit in with other people now. I'm going to go and carve my path. And since I started doing that and gotten a little more confident with it and started different things and tried things, some which have failed, some which seem to be doing quite well right now, which is lovely, you, as I say, you end up getting people on your sort of like path with you who are just these amazing people that you're like, where did you come from? You're just so incredible. But that wouldn't have happened had I have sort of stayed within that thing of only relying on someone else giving me my self-worth. Instead, just taking the reins and going, you know what? This is what I choose to be about. This is what I choose to put out there. If people call me for a gig, that is lovely, and that is a bonus, and I enjoy it for what it is, but I don't pin everything on that one thing. And that's been a huge lesson for me over the past 5 years. Like I say, since I started EmilyDrums.com, that was the first inclination of like, okay, I can do something myself. I don't need to rely on other people to work. That's interesting. That's an interesting concept, and just growing it from there. So yeah, would recommend. 5 stars, would recommend.
No, congrats, because you've got your drum stem club,
Yeah.
and you've got your whole people remote recording course.
Yeah.
It's cool, and it's really nice to see that you're like in your happy place and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Do you know what I mean? It's just really nice. It's just really clear that you've created that, and that's what you're meant to do. It's really nice.
Thank you. And like I say, it wasn't without its struggles, and I finally feel like I'm happy, like you say. And for years I was not. I was in a very dark place, probably for about 10 years. And to be out of that is like, wow, okay, cool, that this is possible. Wow, that's amazing. So yeah, if people, this is the only thing that I think a lot of people see me and they go, well, she's just happy all the time and she's just full of energy. But I'm human. I have my moments where I'm like, I am exhausted, I don't feel good, but I kind of know how to get myself out of it. But there has been this sort of period of time that not a lot of people did see, and those that did probably didn't even see the real me within that time. It was only when I sort of addressed those things, like I went for CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. If anyone's looking into that, I'd highly recommend that. It's amazing. And I just decided to sort of sort myself out and just take ownership of what was wrong and deal with it, and we'll try to deal with it, at least get some tools to deal with it. So it hasn't been without its bumpy rides along the way, but man, I wouldn't change anything. To be right here right now, this is right, this feels right. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it's very important to feel good in our own skin, which,
Yes.
as you pointed out many times, is not easy.
No.
But on the other hand, is easy because that's you. You don't need to pretend.
It's true. I think the scary thing about being yourself that I found was, oh no, like, at least if I'm pretending to be something else with a mask on, if I get rejected, at least they're not rejecting me really. The scary thing is I'm being myself. What if they don't like me? And that is the terrifying thing. It's completely irrational and ridiculous, but it happens. That's just human nature. We want people to like us. That's it. And I still have those feelings. I still have massive insecurity sometimes, but it's just part of life, isn't it? And I think you've got to just risk it for a biscuit, because imagine if you're like 100% yourself and then you get these awesome people kicking about who love you for exactly what you are. I'd take that risk any day of the week. So like I say, it's scary. It's really scary, but it's really worth it too.
Cool.
Well done you. I think it's awesome. Loving it. I wanted to ask you, because if people don't know, you've got your own recording thing going on. You did The Voice Kids, didn't you, recently? That was on TV.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, how did that work in terms of like rehearsal? Was there much? Did you have to read a lot? How'd that work?
Oh, well, let me tell you about The Voice Kids. So I got this phone call June last year, so June 2019. And it was from Dave Tench, who I'm sure that you guys know. So he's the musical director for The Voice Kids. He's worked with many other people. I've known him for a few years. And he was like, yeah, I've got, he was very cryptic about it. He was like, so I've got a gig, and can we meet for coffee? Can I just talk you through it? And I was like, yeah, like, sure, that's fine. So I met up with him, and it turned out that Ash Sutton had left The Voice to go and pursue mainly his recording stuff, amongst other things. And he was like, yeah, I'd like you to come and do The Voice Kids gig. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, the voice gig, generally, kids or adults, is notorious for volume of songs. So in a series, I think we did around about 120 songs or something like that. But not only that, every song is either a completely different arrangement to what you know it as, or it's in it's in a completely different style to what you know it. So they're essentially 120 new songs to your ear. And even worse than that, if you know them too well, sometimes, when your body does that automatic muscle memory thing, ain't none of that. You can't do that. So so the consequence is the way that they run it, and it's like the most awesome machine, the way that they run their rehearsals and stuff. But the main crux of it is it's all red. Now, before I had this meeting, I could read a little bit. I could read like drum exercises, fine, like on the whole. But drum music, like whole songs, I was a bit sketchy to say the least. In fact, I'll be honest. So if a piece of music went up as a song, I just wouldn't see anything. It's like I went blind because it was like too much information and I would just freak out. I'd lose all musicality. It was like I'd never heard a song in my life. Even if I knew the song and knew how it went, I still wouldn't be able to play it. Absolutely ridiculous. So between June and November was when the gig started. I knew that I had this period of time. And as Dave, the MD, was sat there talking to me, he's going, yeah, and he was sort of explaining it. So it's going to be red. And in my head, I was going, you can't read. You can't read. You can't do this. Like, absolutely not. Don't be ridiculous. But for some reason, my mouth, well, the other side of my brain went, yeah, but you love a challenge. I have this sadistic voice in my head that always loves to kind of like go, yeah, go on, do it, do it, do it. So my mouth said yes. And I was like, oh God, now I need to work out how to read to the point that I need to sight read, because the other thing is just the speed of when the edits are done, just the way that the whole TV thing runs. You wouldn't hear the songs before. You probably, in fact, we got the charts maybe like a day or two before, maybe. So essentially, I knew that I needed to be able to sight read. There it is, bang, go. So for the next however many months that was, 4 months, I just created this strict routine of like making myself read hundreds and hundreds of charts that were way more complicated than the ones that I was going to be presented with. And I did that for like 3 hours a day for 4 months, essentially. I operate on a basis of fear, by the way, I will say. So I just purely didn't want to fail at this. And yeah, and then we got into the rehearsal room and it all worked. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is just, I'm so relieved, because I knew that I wouldn't know until the first day of rehearsals. And yeah, and it all worked. And honestly, it's one of the most incredible gigs to do, not just because of the way that they run it. Like I say, in rehearsals it's very quick, because I don't like sitting around in rehearsals waiting for like a guitarist to get a guitar tone. It's one of my pet peeves about rehearsals. It's like waiting on people. I don't like waiting. I don't like other people waiting on me. But the way that they run it, it's literally like, all right, bang, what's the song? Yeah, all right, bang, here's the chart. Okay, 1 2 3, all right, play. All right, great, that sounds good. Okay, we don't need to do it again, do we? Nah. Okay, next one. And that is how it runs, and it's like my dream. And then you actually get into the filming studio, and that is one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had in my life. Kind of sat there watching will.i.am trying to play bagpipes, for instance, was a little strange. And then watching Pixie Lott trying to rap to a 10-year-old boy was very odd. And just these moments where you just go, is this my life? This is the weirdest thing. What is happening? So anyway, but it's very it's so satisfying. And the band themselves are like some of the best players in the country, and just I'm sat there just going, these guys are, what am I doing here? I'm not good enough to be here. Are you kidding me? It's amazing. It's such an amazing experience. And I've been asked to do the next series, so we start filming in January, I think it is. So yeah, I'm lucky that they've asked me back, so I must not have done the most awful job ever in the world. So that's good. I'll take that as a win.
Of course, you did an amazing job, because you're super talented and you did the work.
I'm just super scared. I'm just terrified 24/7. So I must be so over prepared that on my worst, I'll still scrape through.
That's just like a massive lesson in, being prepared, perseverance, and enjoy it too.
Yeah.
You should be like, yeah.
I'm not very good at that. I'm not the best at the patting.
But the thing is,
just do a little one.
Yeah. We won't show anyone.
A lot of people would shy away from that experience. For example, when you were having the first chat over coffee, most people would just be saying, I can't read, I can't read, I can't read. And then the first word that would come from your mouth would be, I can't read. And the guy would say, well, that's the end of it then, bye.
Do you know what's funny, actually, coming back to what we spoke about personalities and stuff, what was interesting, and I love this guy for this, because he's very in tune with like what people are thinking, I feel, and like body language and stuff like that. And we were sat there and he said to me, he said, I know you're probably thinking like, there are so many drummers that I could call to do this. Are you sitting there thinking, why have I called you? And I said to him, yes, actually, because like, really? There's so many, like, why? And I love that he asked me that, because I wouldn't have the audacity to ask someone, why have you called me? Because why would you do that? But the fact that he said that to me, I was like, yeah, actually I am. And he said, okay, so here's a situation, like, you've been posting all this stuff on social media. I've known you for a while. You're so positive. We need like a positive person just there to, because it's hard. These days are very long. So the thing that is most important, anyone can play, but it's about keeping morale up. And it's about, just keeping positive in times that, you're going to be knackered. We all get knackered. These are long filming days. They're like 12, 14 hours. And by the end of it, honestly, you are like, oh my God, please, can we just leave? But he said, the reason that I'm calling you is because you're that personality that I think is just going to work really well within the group and the setup. And I already knew a couple of the guys. So that, I think, was the overriding factor of why he called me, because it just worked. It made sense. And I'd like to think he was right, because as I said, they've asked me back. So
Well, he was right.
Yeah,
And
I
then
guess so.
it ties back to what we spoke previously, which was just playing well is not enough.
Exactly.
A lot of people can play well.
Yeah, there's so many people that could have been called for that, and I just feel lucky that I got the call. I'm so lucky.
But you also made that own luck, I think. You know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
chance.
No, I think you can definitely like up your chances of luck for sure, like up the percentage. But I mean, I am not gonna sit here and say I did this all myself and it's all just hard work. No, there is a lot of luck. The fact that, I mean, even the fact that I grew up in North London, that is lucky. Because if I was in the middle of nowhere, I wouldn't have had the opportunities to go to blues jams at 11 years old to play live with people. It just wouldn't have happened. The fact that my dad played a bit of guitar, that is lucky. And I would never sit here and say that luck was not a part of where I am, but I will say that I try to maximize my chances of being lucky, I suppose. Plus I got Irish heritage, so that helps.
Okay, so as our last little bit of, there's been lots of nuggets of wisdom, I think, in this episode. I've really liked it, and I really like the fact that you're so vocal about talking about mental health. With all of that in mind, what do you wish you could say to your younger self?
Oh, goodness gracious, what could I say? Well, I'd say it's going to be all right. Just keep strong. I would say start recording yourself and listening back to how you actually sound a lot earlier, not from day one, because I feel like that would have just completely destroyed me and I would have not even bothered, but maybe at like 15. And then I'd say things, you're gonna fail at things, but that's okay, because you're gonna learn from things and you're going to get stronger. And actually, where you're going to end up at this point, at least, who knows what's going to happen in the future, you're going to be really happy, although that probably feels like it is not a possibility right now. It is. You will be, and you're not going to believe what's going to happen.
Great.
Oh,
Excellent.
Thank you for taking the time out to chat with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure hanging out with you guys. You guys are awesome.
Thank you very much.